The halo will be a street lamp. I turn my collar to the cold and damp. When my eyes are stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night into the sound of silence.
Scientific studies indicate that empathy is a skill that can be taught, with early childhood development being an ideal starting point, although it can also be acquired as an adult. However, I personally have not seen any research or statistical data on specific outcomes on the teaching of empathy as a learned skill. Empathy can be described as the ability to emotionally understand what others feel, seeing things from their perspective, and imagining oneself in their shoes. Essentially, it involves placing oneself in someone else's position and experiencing their emotions. While there is no absolute teaching methodology for empathy due to the lack of conclusive evidence regarding its validity, it is likely that empathy involves multiple processes that incorporate both automatic emotional responses and learned conceptual reasoning. Some research categorizes empathy into two main types: cognitive empathy and emotional empathy. Others propose three types, including compassionate empathy, which not only involves understanding a person's situation, but also seeking to improve their life. Cognitive empathy encompasses taking another person's perspective, imagining what it's like to be in their shoes and understanding their feelings. Emotional empathy involves sharing an emotional experience, feeling distress in response to someone's pain, and experiencing a willingness to help. Empathy appears to develop over time as part of human growth and has evolutionary roots. Studies have observed elementary forms of empathy in primates, dogs, and even rats. From a developmental standpoint, humans begin demonstrating signs of empathy in social interactions during the second and third years of life. While we won't delve into every scientific explanation or debate surrounding empathy, it is worth noting that this presentation represents my theory on empathy through the understanding of interconnections of the oneness of being. With a shared emotional framework, empathy is seated within all emotional structures. Development is achieved through an understanding of humanity as it connects to all things while changing perceptions through self-understanding and acceptance of individual truths. This is the methodology created for instruction and required teaching on the subject.
When contemplating the complexities of the human experience, it becomes evident that there are certain aspects that deserve our attention. One such aspect is the concept of interconnectedness. By recognizing the intricate web of connections that exist between individuals, communities, and even across time, we gain a deeper understanding of the significance of our actions. We begin to realize that our choices and behaviors can have far-reaching effects on others, emphasizing the importance of empathy and consideration. We begin to see our own truths, recognizing the fears that keep us from confronting those pieces that make one's wholeness. Those fears manifest into judgment, discrimination, hatred, and aggression against persons or groups you yourself can identify or share similarities with those you criticize. Lack of understanding of human nature as a whole prevents any understanding of self-awareness, as well as understanding others. Empathy existence truly cannot become initiated within this stage of human development, simply because all the necessary components are not yet developed. In order to truly grasp the depth of these connections, it is crucial to explore new perspectives and perceptions. By opening ourselves up to different cultures, beliefs, and experiences, we broaden our understanding of the world and foster a sense of empathy. This not only enriches our own lives, but also challenges our preconceived notions and encourages personal growth. While understanding others is vital, it is equally important to engage in self-reflection. By taking the time to introspect and examine our own thoughts, emotions, and actions, we cultivate self-awareness. This self-awareness allows us to recognize our biases, weaknesses, and areas for improvement. It serves as a foundation for personal growth and contributes to our own evolutionary progress. By acknowledging the interconnectedness of humanity, exploring new perspectives, and engaging in self-reflection, we embark on a journey of understanding and growth. These aspects work in harmony to shape our worldview, foster empathy, and contribute to the betterment of ourselves and society as a whole. The content within, its views, concepts, and understandings are from the wisdom and knowledge that I was shown over many years to see the simplicity while humanity confuses the whole message by dismantling of its parts. We will show you an easy formula to utilize critical thinking to piece together the essential elements needed to complete major components of life, planet, and universal elements connected all to one source. Hopefully this will give you the answers to an existence with a new perspective. We cover inclusion, diversity, and a comprehensive understanding of the oneness of being and its connections to all things, releasing the ability for empathy, compassion, and truth of all things.
Once upon a time in a peaceful village, there lived a kind-hearted young woman named Little Bo Peep. She had a flock of sheep that she cared for dearly, but one fateful day, she realized that her sheep had mysteriously gone missing. Little Bo Peep searched high and low, but she couldn't find them anywhere. She felt lost and didn't know what to do. As the days went by, Little Bo Peep's desperation grew. She couldn't bear the thought of her beloved sheep being lost and in danger. Little did anyone know, she had secretly sold her sheep to the slaughterhouse for a quick profit. It was a decision she deeply regretted, but fear and greed had clouded her judgment. Instead of admitting her mistake, Little Bo Peep chose to deceive the public. She spread rumors and conspiracy theories about the whereabouts of her sheep, pointing fingers at innocent villagers and creating chaos. The community was divided and confused, unable to separate truth from fiction. However, Little Bo Peep carried the weight of guilt on her shoulders. She knew the truth, and it ate away at her conscience. Night after night, she couldn't sleep, haunted by the faces of her sheep and the lies she had told. One day, as she gazed at the empty pasture where her sheep used to graze, Little Bo Peep had a moment of clarity. She realized that she had betrayed not only her sheep but also the trust of her community. Determined to make amends, she decided to come clean and reveal the truth. Little Bo Peep stood before the villagers, her voice trembling with remorse. She confessed her actions, admitting the deceit and manipulation she had engaged in. The villagers listened, shocked and saddened by her betrayal. In an act of redemption, Little Bo Peep vowed to make things right. She used her newfound knowledge to expose the lies and conspiracy theories she had spread, dismantling the web of confusion that had gripped the village. She dedicated herself to repairing the fractured trust, working tirelessly to rebuild the community's unity. Over time, Little Bo Peep's genuine remorse and efforts to seek forgiveness touched the hearts of the villagers. They saw her transformation and recognized her sincerity. Together, they worked towards healing and creating a more inclusive and transparent society, and so, Little Bo Peep's tale became a symbol of redemption and the power of acknowledging one's mistakes. Her story served as a reminder that honesty, accountability, and a commitment to truth are essential for the well-being of any community. As for Little Bo Peep, she spent the rest of her days tending to her new flock of sheep with utmost care and compassion. She became a beacon of change, inspiring others to always choose honesty and integrity, and her village flourished under her guidance. And they all lived happily ever after.
Through the journey of deception, responsibility, and redemption, Lil learns the consequences of manipulating narratives and the power of accepting the truth. Her redemption is not achieved through the forgiveness of others, but rather through her acceptance of responsibility and the courage to admit her mistakes. The story explores themes of personal and sociological responsibility, the impact of labels, and the importance of seeking and embracing the truth. Redemption does not come by way of forgiveness. Redemption comes by acceptance of one's own truth.
The story just presented, in its context, style and presentation, is considered a fable rather than a fairy tale. It has simple conflict, resolution, and followed by a maxim, in other words, the moral of the story, a lesson on behavior, with an intention of becoming a better person. A fairy tale is a short narrative, usually in faraway kingdom or a forest, a place where mystical and magical characters interact with humans, introduced with, once upon time. Sometimes a fairy tale will include lessons, yet some argue Peep's story is a fairy tale rather than a fable, using its introduction, and they lived happily ever after, its ending as their justification. Concluding it's wrong and won't accept it, conflict versus conflict rather fable versus fairy tale, created by confusion created conflict. You don't find this exhausting? As humans, we have a tendency to focus on parts or pieces rather than the whole, formulating opinion and belief based on the preconceived notions of others, be it taught, told, or learned, losing sight of the whole. Missing the point. Take, for example, the moral of the story. One must wait until all the pieces are in place before you get the intended result. By converting each element of criteria in both the fable and fairy tale definitions into puzzle pieces, we can examine how they fit together to form the complete story. The story itself becomes the puzzle that we aim to solve. Fable is in question, therefore, this is the puzzle we focus on to determine if in fact the included context fits, or changes the appearance of its content. Question? By presenting the story differently, make it less than other fables? Once Upon a Time is reference to a time period not specific. It based in reality of human existence, although structured with fictitious characters. The element of conflict and resolution and resolve are based on specific human behaviors. They lived happily ever after represents hopefulness. It gives a relatable outcome we all desire. Just because the fable presents differently does not change the fact it's a fable. Doesn't change the narrative, presented differently yet still meets its definition. Faraway kingdoms, mystical creatures, and magic are based on delusion, are not present if one took the time to read the whole story. A new perception of its whole, rather than assumption based on a part, would give a new understanding of its content. The story explores themes of personal and sociological responsibility, the impact of labels, and the importance of seeking and embracing the truth.
Yes, it is I, Kevin, Kevin's body double. Yes, that Kevin, precisely. You remember. Unfortunately, Kevin is developing somewhat of a narcissistic persona as of late. Imagine an avatar with delusional fantasies while harboring a personality disorder. Kevin believes he's entitled to some sort of special privilege for reason. He believes his father is no other than that Justin Bieber chap, whom happens to be an elite member of the Avatarian aristocracy. Not much different than one of those lizard persons we never encounter. In all actuality, this a consequence of engaging in unprotected data encryption, whilst hacking around nightly with the dark web. Kevin has been infected with a magnum-sized Trojan horse. Apparently, an emergency visit to the IT room is in order, I shall admit. Now that the informational update on why Kevin is not included with this project has come to its conclusion. We have two distinct puzzles, each complete in their own right. However, when we introduce additional puzzle pieces, text, to our fable, we discover that it does not fundamentally alter the fable as a whole. The added text serves as an enhancement without changing the original intent. This broader perspective offers a more conclusive viewpoint, changing our perception. Let's combine both puzzles, the fable and the fairy tale, into a single volume. We will label the fairy tale as old and the fable as new, considering their current presentation with the added text. This will become a vital piece of the overall narrative as we continue to make connections. Now, let's examine the characters within both puzzles and define them accordingly. In the fable, humans are the main characters, while sheep serve as relatable creatures that humans can easily identify. On the other hand, fairy tale characters consist of a mixture of mythical and magical creatures that exist beyond our reality. When the pieces are placed, everything comes together. We can conclude that the overall content, including characters, conflict, and resolution, portrays humans as a collection of fables with morals to their stories. It is clear that humans do not fit within a fairy tale, as they do not align with the realistic nature of our present reality. Wouldn't you agree? Therefore, as a collective or as individuals, we all belong to the same genre, with the necessary criteria categorizing us as human beings. In my own opinion, I find this highly questionable. Understanding which demographics fit within the intended fable structure without altering the essence. Let's start with gender. Male, female, and alternative identities. Any gender specification fits within the fable genre without changing its definition, it remains a fable. Age, skin tone, race, or sexual preference or relationships. Human relationships and personal identity are more about emotions and connections, and they do not change the definition of a fable. Looking at it analytically, we can see that each individual piece fits within the puzzle. No matter who you are or what decisions you make, you are a unique individual with your own fable and moral of the story for your own evolution.
Often, misunderstandings and conflicts arise from fear and ignorance, which stem from generational biases and lack of knowledge. In viewing this metaphor, we can begin to see ourselves reflected in the interconnectedness of all things. We start to understand that our individual experiences and perspectives are just a small part of the whole. We become aware of the significance of embracing our differences and valuing the contributions of others. This broader perception allows us to shift our focus from solely the parts that captured our attention to the entirety of humanity. The Earth is like a machine, with all its parts purposefully placed to fulfill its operational intent. Just like a puzzle, focusing on a small piece or part can often lead to misinterpretation. To better understand the overall systems at play, let's use the analogy of a machine for our planet and planetary systems, puzzles for all things related to humans, and supercomputer referencing our universe. A machine requires many parts and systems, purposely created for maintaining its intended function, necessary for maximum operational performance. Ask yourself, would anyone create a machine without the necessary components required for function and operational efficiency? This is the larger puzzle that all individual and completed collective puzzles fit within. We are an intended part or a group that is a systematic safeguard for its intended purpose. Once you discover all the elements that are involved with the operations of such a machine, your ability to see it as a purposeful intention, your focus shifts, gaining an understanding, changing perceptions. Congratulations, you've discovered truth. Here's one example. Given the rate of birth, if everyone were heterosexual and reproducing like rabbits, our species would have become so overpopulated by the Middle Ages that we might have already faced extinction. Homosexuality would be a viable solution to the overall operation, maintaining manageable numbers conducive to time period and location, and mortality rates. Therefore, it makes sense to have a system in place for population control, a system vital to our survival. Now, the universe consists of many other machines, all diverse and inclusive, with each part playing a vital role in the operation of the supercomputer. Now, let's consider a thought-provoking question. Would a creator intentionally disrupt or hinder their own creation with intentional obstruction? This question invites us to reflect on the purpose and design of the universe and the role of diversity and inclusion within it. Fable, rather human beings, regardless of demographically differentials, all fit within the intended definition. As we all fit within the same machine, doing our intended function to maintain our planet's maximum operational performance, we begin to see the beauty and complexity of the human tapestry. By recognizing and embracing these opposing forces, we can unravel the complexities of the puzzle. Connecting the pieces allows the puzzle to present itself, revealing a clearer and more comprehensive understanding of the world and our place within it. In conclusion, it is crucial to transcend the habit of focusing solely on individual pieces and instead view the interconnectedness of all things. By doing so, we can navigate the contrasting dynamics of the old and the new, understanding their significance in shaping our experiences. Embracing these opposing forces brings clarity and depth to our perception of the whole, allowing us to appreciate the intricate puzzle of existence and our role within it.
Let's take a moment to discuss the concept of inclusion, the dynamics of fitting in, and the need for belonging. We all have a natural desire to be a part of a specific group or community, whether it's a tightly knit circle or a more loosely defined collective. Often, we find ourselves adapting to the expectations and ideals of these groups in order to fit in. However, in doing so, we may lose sight of our true selves. We end up changing our ideas, behaviors, and even our personalities to align with the group's standards, regardless of whether they truly reflect who we are. This tendency can stem from various factors, such as low self-esteem or a need for validation, both physically and emotionally. We gravitate towards certain groups or organizations because they offer us attention and a sense of belonging. We crave someone to notice us and affirm our desires and feelings, even if it means compromising our authenticity. The journey is centered around the themes of inclusion, fitting in, and embracing diversity, while providing a feasible theory on empathy. We can view the vast collection of fables and fairy tales as a representation of the human experience, where reality intertwines with imagination. Additionally, we can employ critical thinking and a simplified approach, using puzzles and their pieces as metaphors to connect logical elements and gain a broader perspective. Each component or completed puzzle represents a significant part of a larger whole. By examining the various parts required for its functionality, we observe that no two parts are exactly alike. They may share similarities, but each possesses its own unique diversity. Every piece or grouping of similar parts serves a specific role within the larger system, intentionally designed to contribute to the overall operation. This structural framework, with its interconnected systems, ensures optimal efficiency and performance when working in harmony. Furthermore, this structure is just one piece of a much larger systema machine that is constantly expanding and producing without pause. It consists of numerous intricately diverse parts, each playing a vital role in the processes of production, progress, and the evolution of a greater machine. This is where you fit in. You already belong because your purpose in life is not solely defined by what you do. Your purpose lies in who you are as an individual. By accepting your own truth, you gain a different perception of the reality of the whole. You develop a greater understanding of oneness and your place within it. The universe, supercomputer, as any computer must have a source of power providing specific data and vital information for the evolutionary progress and expansion of the supercomputer's operational program. That power is continually running throughout every circuit, part etc., of all that exist within its whole. All thing in existence that contain life within must have an awareness of being or it wouldn't exist. This awareness, or consciousness, is the power source which not only connects humanity, its puzzles, machines, their operating systems, while we're all living within a supercomputer. Therefore, God knowing all things must know God. Therefore, our consciousness is a shared life force with all things. God resides within all life, sharing his consciousness, giving us the awareness of being. In other words, life, once all pieces are in place, the whole is revealed, you will immediately have a whole new perspective with a new understanding of the oneness of being.
Individually, why must one identify with a particular group or label? Is it a sense of belonging to a diverse group, set apart by a perception of misrepresented intent? Ask yourself what defines you as an individual, not the label you identify with, whether it's heterosexual, LGBTQ, or any other letter you may identify with. This is only a puzzle piece that fits within our own complete puzzle. Here, too, is an example of focusing on a part rather than the whole. Perceptions are created by the presentation of this one puzzle piece. Criticism and consequences are based on misrepresentation of an incomplete puzzle. Now ask yourself, besides this one piece, what are those other puzzle pieces that completes your puzzle? Let me share my own personal experience. I don't feel the need to identify with any specific group, letter, or person. Why? To provide the curious with another topic of conversation? I've always accepted myself as I am, regardless of how others perceive me. Fear doesn't dictate my perception of myself. The label I chose, if asked, represents the completeness of my puzzle, my true identity, which is, I am. I cannot be more, nor can I be less than. It's a label that encompasses all, yet it's a label which cannot define. I rarely have to explain who I am to anyone. And if asked, as I stated, my reply is, I am. I wouldn't hide or deny any part of myself if engaged in any conversation regarding pertinent subject matter. I've always presented myself authentically to everyone, without a pretentious or egotistical persona. I haven't faced rejection or discrimination for being who I am. I've hung out, worked, and lived in areas that aren't accepting of race or LGBTQ individuals. Yet I've always been accepted and been able to connect with others based on shared interests and activities. It has also opened up dialogue about our differences and why some people try to push their sexuality continuously in their faces, which I address with logical reasoning, usually satisfying their questions. Again, it's a matter of presentation, not a matter of fact. The perception is formulated from how you present, not from what you represent. My gayness doesn't define my being, just as my being doesn't define my gayness. Literally, we are all greater than just one puzzle piece. Once you're able to look at your complete puzzle, your greatness will be revealed. In the oneness of being, we are all I am.
The whole, or intended perceptions, tends to shift our understanding in a different direction, providing a logical perspective of an unveiled reality. However, most people don't relate to seeing things as a whole, or considering the intended purpose of humanity in relation to creation, evolution, the universe, and the consciousness of God. If anything was learned over the last several years, people rather be told about something rather than read or research it for themselves, regardless of accuracy or truth. Just because someone of wealth told them, therefore it must be true. They have a perception that money equates to intelligence. This, unfortunately, is one example of having no understanding or ability of critical thinking. What is relatable is what prevents self-evolution, keeping us stuck in a mindset of generational perception, a misrepresentation of interpretation and presentation. So here we are, trying to understand humanity in relation to all things. We will also connect the pieces of a puzzle to determine the cause of the blindness that prevents us from seeing the whole. Labels, perception, presentation. These shape our perspectives. Let's start with labels. Changing a label can change perception. For example, a clown, a label for a circus character who brought laughter and fun to an audience. Loved by all. But the perception of clowns changes through presentation. It is now seen as a dark, evil entity with an appetite for children. Similarly, the word gay, originally defined as carefree and happy, has been changed by perception and is now claimed as an identity by some. Do you see what I mean? Changing a label changes perception, and changing perception changes perspective. Opening the mind, it works both ways. However, this is just a piece. Since the beginning of our existence, we have been taught to fear, whether it be God, the devil, the government, or religious leaders, instead of being taught about love, how to love, what love is, and how to give love. We are taught fear. Fear is the creator of discrimination, hatred, oppression, and more. We are also taught that we are inadequate, sinful, and less than in God's eyes. Religion, too, has been a primary source of fear. For example, Christianity, propagated by Constantine, has utilized fear to control, creating hell to keep people oppressed. They invent ideological justifications for punishing and judging those who have different ideas, opinions, or beliefs. They deem them heretics, imprison them, torture them, and often burn them at the stake. Fear is created by an organization to manipulate the Christian community, while taking advantage of them financially, promising salvation for a price. The greatest fear for humans is their own truth, which prevents them from accepting their true selves. All these fears are creations of those who only see a part without realizing the whole. Ignorance and suppression of one's true self keep us prisoners within our own minds, fearing others' opinions and judgments. Trauma is a consequence of this fear, deeply rooted in our subconscious being. Combined with additional experiences, it affects our psychological state, manifesting as behaviors of hatred, addictions, personality disorders, and more. All these pieces of the puzzle, when assembled, create a picture that is completely opposed to the intended oneness of being.
Hopefully, you now have a broader understanding of the human experience and the interconnectedness that goes beyond group affiliations, such as churches, country clubs, races, orientations, or genders. Furthermore, I hope you have gained insight into what hinders human evolution. The tendency to interpret and define based on isolated parts rather than considering the whole. Labels, perception, and presentation often rely on fragmented information. It is important to recognize that identifying as something does not define our completeness. Accepting our own uniqueness does not require approval or the need to present only a small piece of our identity. Presenting an orientation without showcasing the complete puzzle can lead to misconceptions and limited perceptions. This concept applies to all aspects of life, as it is the outcome of selectively seeing what one wants to see. Please note that I am not targeting the LGBTQ community or showing disrespect towards anyone. I am simply using it as an example to illustrate the impact of labels, perception, and how perspective is shaped through presentation. Speaking of presentation, when combining fables and fairy tales into a single volume, they are often interpreted based on individual pieces rather than the intended collective message. This can lead to debates, conflicts, and confusion. It may be best to keep them separate to avoid such chaos, don't you think? I almost forgot to mention the consequences of fear, hate, division, and misinterpretation. When individual pieces are taken out of context, judgment may follow, using a single piece as justification. This is why it is not suitable to merge reality-based genres with non-reality-based genres that inherently oppose each other. Just because there are similarities does not mean they belong in the same volume. The puzzle, where all these pieces fit into, encompasses fear, judgment, hatred, and division. I believe you understand the point I am trying to make. When it comes to religious texts and content, regardless of the faith, denomination, or sect one follows, they are often seen in fragments. However, I perceive our Christian Bible as a whole, revealing something different from what we are commonly taught or not taught.
I had a bright idea, an epiphany. Ever had one of those brilliant ideas diving directly into the cerebrum no more than 10 minutes after you went to bed? What? You thought maybe I would just wait until... Oh, like in the morning? Are you high, Clary? I only wish I had a brain that had rational thought capabilities. For the love of the Jesus, and nobody is perfect. So I'm told. By using puzzle pieces and machines as a system to construct your puzzle to reveal its complete intent, you can travel time and space utilizing this simplistic method to gain greater understanding and broadening your perspective. Before I continue, I would like to recap in short form. 1. You now have an easy system for connecting pieces that are related to C, the intended through a complete puzzle. 2. You now know how we connect not only to humanity but to all things. You now understand conscious awareness of being, which is the same life force. That power source which connects puzzles, machines, systems into the supercomputer is a collective consciousness that is connected directly into the creator of that power. 3. Perceptions will change. Positive perspectives will develop. An existence of unity will take over. A realization and acceptance of self and others, knowing what once was don't really matter. However, unity, peace, and a oneness of being. Therefore, empathy, compassion, and understanding is the natural consequence. I've studied theology and religious doctrine, including the Christian Bible. I researched, I seeketh and findeth. My overall perception was a product of contradictory viewpoints based on hypocritical narratives justifying self-serving actions, be it individual, group, or congregation. When you take pieces from the old and try to justify it with the new, it doesn't work. The old and the new are totally in opposition of each other. Combining of the two books, besides being an oxymoron, it creates confusion, conflict, and chaos. Not to mention the exploitation of God. Justifying a justification with, God said it, these are His words. In other words, God's blessing for the discrimination and chastisement of others. Doing God's work rather than His Son's. Mazel tov on your mitzvah. Oh, you don't say. Christian? Really? The one with the Jesus. So what does he say about all this? Trust me, I'm not trying to disrespect or criticize one's beliefs. Unfortunately, this is the reality of seeing a part rather than the whole. Who, why, and how did this happen in the first place? You take it from here, look at the book as a whole. All the similarities, characters, actions, and words are your puzzle pieces. Once completed, this puzzle now becomes a piece of the larger puzzle, the creation of the book and Christian church. Changing a label will change a perception. Changing a perception will change a perspective. Changing a perspective will open a mind.
Softly creeping, left its seeds while I was sleeping. In the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless streams I walked alone, in narrow streets of cobblestone. Neath the halo of a street lamp, I turned my collar to the cold and damp. When my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night into the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000